late best friend's daughter, Susie, and raised her as his own. As the years passed, Susie grew up and developed feelings for her adoptive father, despite their lack of blood relation. On her 18th birthday, she mustered the courage to confess her love, only for Andy to firmly reject her. "This is impossible. I can only be your uncle." But an accidental kiss one day shattered the boundaries between them. Andy sternly warned her, "Don't ever do this again." From that moment, Susie buried her feelings deep inside. Every year on her birthday, she silently wished for a future with Andy. On the eve of her 22nd birthday, she carefully knitted a scarf as a gift for him. However, her hopes were crushed when she saw Andy return home with a woman named Bess, whom he announced as his fiancée. Heartbroken, Susie's carefully knitted scarf was ignored by Andy, who coldly brushed her aside. To extinguish any lingering hope, Andy acted intimately with Bess in front of her, even carrying his fiancée into their bedroom while Susie looked on. Holding back her tears, she resolved to bury her feelings for good. Finally disillusioned, Susie decided to move abroad to start over. Her uncle had reached out to her many times, urging her to return to her real family, but she had always stayed for Andy. Now, she realized it was time to let go. She planned to tell Andy about her decision and hoped he would accompany her to process her visa. But Bess, always scheming, clung to Andy for a date instead. Seeing Susie ready to go out, Bess pretended to be considerate and offered her a ride, though it was all part of her plan to drive Susie away. During the ride, Bess flaunted her relationship with Andy, asking him to do her makeup and pretending to be a caring elder by offering to set Susie up with a boyfriend. At one point, Bess deliberately claimed she had forgotten something at home, forcing Andy to drop Susie off mid-journey so he could return with Bess. Standing alone in the rain, Susie watched their car drive away. After completing her visa application, Susie returned home to pack. Bess barged into her room under the guise of concern and feigned surprise at Susie's plans to leave. She pretended to persuade her to stay while subtly boasting about her romance with Andy. Bess then accidentally knocked over Susie's cherished family photo, shattering it. Hearing the noise, Andy rushed in, only to immediately check if Bess was hurt, completely ignoring Susie's pain. Picking up the broken pieces of the photo, Susie lowered her head to hide her tears. That evening, Susie struggled to keep her emotions in check as she watched Bess and Andy share an intimate dinner. Determined to leave everything behind, she decided to deal with her artwork before moving abroad. Sensing an opportunity, Bess suggested hosting a joint art exhibit to showcase both their works. On the day of the exhibit, Bess placed her own centerpiece beside Susie's. When the covers were removed, the crowd was stunned to find that Bess's piece was identical to Susie's. Susie was immediately accused of plagiarism. With her reputation as an artist at stake, Bess pulled out a sketchbook to claim the artwork as her original creation. Susie recognized the sketches as her own but was horrified when Bess leaned in and whispered smugly, "Andy gave them to me." When Andy arrived, Susie desperately hoped he would defend her. To her devastation, he sided with Bess and even admitted to giving her Susie's sketches. Susie's heart shattered completely. Late at night, a drunken Andy stumbled into Susie's room and, in an emotional frenzy, kissed her forcefully. Susie resisted with all her strength, not wanting to be mistaken for Bess. Eventually, Andy passed out on her bed. When he woke up the next morning, he wrongly assumed Susie had taken advantage of him. Furious, he berated her for being indecent and warned her to abandon any lingering feelings for him. Susie, holding back tears, tried to explain, but Andy coldly cut her off. In the end, she made one last request. "For my 22nd birthday, can you spend it with me just this once?" Andy reluctantly agreed. "I'll be there, but don't disappoint me." On her birthday, Susie waited for Andy with hope in her heart, but the hours stretched on with no sign of him. When she finally called, it was Bess who answered the phone. In a nonchalant tone, Bess said, "Andy's freshening up." Susie immediately understood the implication. Swallowing her heartbreak, she lit her birthday candles alone and, as she blew them out, extinguished the last bit of hope she had for Andy. That night, she packed her things, threw away old belongings, and left for the airport. The next morning, Andy woke up sober and checked his phone, only to see no missed calls. A vague sense of unease crept over him. After questioning Bess, he learned that she had intentionally taken Susie's call and misled her. Panicking, Andy rushed home. It was then revealed that Bess had been nothing more than a pawn in his act to push Susie away. They were never truly together. But when Andy arrived, all that greeted him were cold, untouched birthday dishes, a stale cake, and Susie's farewell letter. Andy raced to the airport to find Susie, but she was nowhere to be seen. Little did he know, she had already boarded her flight and arrived in a new country. Determined to sever all ties with her past, Susie threw away her phone, cutting off any way for Andy to reach her. Returning to the now empty house, Andy walked into Susie's room and found it meticulously cleaned, as if she had never lived there. The maid quietly informed him that Susie had taken all her belongings. Desperate, Andy ran outside to rummage through the trash, where he found the scarf Susie had knitted for him, their shared photos, and the gifts he had given her, all discarded without hesitation. Clutching the abandoned items, Andy felt a searing pain in his chest, as if his heart were being torn apart. Sitting on the ground, Andy recalled his late friend's words, "If Susie ever leaves, will you regret it?" At the time, Andy had scoffed, confident that she would always stay. But now, that confidence had been shattered by the cruel weight of reality. Andy had once loved Susie, but societal expectations had condemned those feelings. Long ago, his father had discovered the truth and punished him severely, forcing Andy to push Susie away and bury his emotions deep inside. However, the agony of losing her made him realize he could no longer deny his heart. Learning of Susie's whereabouts, Andy didn't hesitate. He immediately set off to find her. Andy finally found Susie, who was strolling down a tree-lined campus path with a young man, her face radiating a long-lost sense of ease. Blocking her path, Andy's voice was heavy with regret and urgency. "Susie, come home with me. I was wrong. Losing you made me realize how important you are to me." But Susie coldly brushed his hand away, her tone distant as she addressed him, "Uncle, please mind yourself." The boy beside her protectively wrapped his arm around her shoulders and led her away. On the way, Ben couldn't help but ask, "Who was that man?" Susie calmly recounted her past, her voice devoid of any emotion. Listening to her story, Ben felt a deep ache for the pain she had endured. Not long after, Susie entered a jewelry design competition and won the grand prize with a piece inspired by forbidden love. However, when the presenter was revealed to be Andy, her expression shifted slightly. Standing on stage, Susie shocked the crowd by apologizing, refusing the award, and smashing the prize necklace in front of everyone. She said calmly, "Brokenness is the only ending for forbidden love." Andy stopped her from leaving, his eyes pleading, "Susie, I was wrong. I'll never lie to you again. Please forgive me." But Susie only looked at him with indifference, her voice soft but firm. "Uncle, I've already moved on from this." With that, she turned and left. That night, Andy stood in the rain outside Susie's dorm, hoping for any response from her. However, Susie merely glanced at him coldly from her window, showing no emotion before turning away. When Susie was harassed, Andy arrived just in time to save her. As a thug swung a wooden stick at Andy, Susie instinctively shielded him, taking the hit herself. While treating her injuries, Andy hesitantly asked, "Do you still have feelings for me?" Susie's response was icy. "I helped you because you once took care of me." Unwilling to accept her distance, Andy begged her to stop calling him uncle, but she refused. Losing control, he kissed her, only to be interrupted by a phone call. After speaking with his father and Bess, Andy rejected their engagement arrangement and turned to confess his love to Susie, only to be rejected again. At that moment, Susie's uncle arrived, interrupting the tense exchange. He firmly told Susie, "I'll always support you." Later that night, a drunken Andy called to meet with Susie. After a moment of silence, she agreed. However, it was her uncle who showed up instead. The older man spoke bluntly, "You're not right for her. There's a 10-year age gap, and I won't let her get hurt again." His words struck a nerve. "You accused Susie of plagiarism yourself back then. You severed all ties with her when you did that." With that, he took Susie away, leaving Andy drowning in regret. For years later, Susie and Ben had become internationally renowned jewelry designers. While in the country for a project, they attended a banquet where Susie unexpectedly ran into one of Andy's friends. The friend wasted no time notifying Andy, who rushed to the venue. When Ben stepped away, Susie was left to handle the gathering alone and encountered a hostile Bess. Filled with jealousy, Bess accused Susie of still pining for Andy. In a fit of rage, she threw a drink at Susie, only for Andy to step in and take it for her. Trying to maintain her distance, Susie avoided Andy, but a waiter bribed by Bess intentionally bumped into her, causing her to fall into the pool. Without hesitation, Andy jumped in after her, performing CPR on an unconscious Susie. After regaining consciousness, Susie found Andy had prepared an elegant evening gown for her. When they reappeared at the banquet together, everyone marveled at how protective Andy was towards Susie. Ben returned just in time to see this and immediately confronted Andy, demanding he maintain his distance as her uncle. However, Andy coolly countered, "I was her uncle before, but I won't be anymore." The calm of the evening was suddenly shattered when everyone at the banquet received a series of intimate photos of Andy and Susie, along with a resurfaced scandal accusing Susie of plagiarism from years ago. Whispers and accusations flooded the room, leaving Susie overwhelmed and cornered. At that moment, Andy stepped forward, exposing the photos as doctored and providing evidence to clear Susie of the old plagiarism scandal. He revealed the true culprit, Bess. A recording of Bess confessing to framing Susie was played, silencing the crowd. Driven mad by her exposure, Bess attempted to attack Susie but was stopped by Andy and arrested on the spot by the police. With the chaos resolved, Ben comforted Susie with warmth and understanding, while Andy assertively remained by her side, refusing to back down. The two men silently vied for her attention. Torn between the first love of her youth and the steady companion of the past 4 years, who would Susie choose?